everybody. Today, Honey is going to continue reading The Beast and the Bethany, written by Jack Maggie Phillips and illustrated by Isabella Follett. Part 8. The Breakfast. Ebenezer woke up the following morning feeling most unwell. When he opened his eyes, everything was blurry, and he had to put on his monocle just to see the duvet. And then when he let out his morning yawn, his elbows and arms creaked like they were a set of old doors. He stood and discovered that his legs were wobbling. They would still work, but they had lost much of their strength during the night. It took even longer than it had done the day before to reach the bathroom, and when he arrived, he almost burst into tears. Ebenezer was upset by his reflection. His eyes was now entirely wrinkled with age. Just to make himself feel worse, Ebenezer started to count the number of wrinkles that appeared on his forehead overnight. He had reached number 8 when he was interrupted by the sound of the beast bell. "These days keeps getting better and better," he mourned to the wrinkly mirror. Ebenezer trudged upstairs. The sound of the bell grew louder and more demanding as it made its way to the top floor. The beast continued to ring the bell, even though Ebenezer was in the room. It only stopped after Ebenezer coughed in a pointed fashion. "What in the name of hot biscuits took you so long?" spat the beast. It was not in a jolly mood. "Terribly sorry, my legs are a bit slow this morning," answered Ebenezer. The beast targeted his three black eyes at Ebenezer. It burst into laughter. "Ho, ho, oh, Ebenezer, is that really what you look without the potion? Is that, gosh, those 511 years really haven't been kind to you, have they?" The beast was truly tickled by the sight of Ebenezer's new oldness. It laughed and laughed until it broke out into a coughing fit. Ebenezer walked over and gave the beast a firm pat on the back. The beast coughed out some stationery, a ruler, protacular, and a packet of pencils, and then it was back to normal again. "You shouldn't have made me laugh so much," Ebenezer said the beast crossly. "You know how bad it is for my chest, really. You could have given me some warning before you came up here looking like that." "Sorry, but I'm afraid that my appearance was a bit of a shock to me as well. I couldn't give you much warning because I had no idea I would wake up looking like this. I can't remember the next time I without the potion for so long. April 1902, said the beast. "It was when you took ages to bring me the Baskerville hound to it. And I don't remember you looking quite this old and rotten. Speaking to the potion, I don't suppose there's any chance you might be able to give me a small advance?" asked Ebenezer. Yes, that's why I ran for you. How's the child doing?" "She's doing fine, actually, a lot better, you know. She's not as awful as I thought. She apologized someone yesterday, and she didn't let me sleep on the toes, so yes, progress, I would say." The beast was not impressed. It didn't care about Bethany's emotional journey to becoming a better behaved person. It only wanted to know whether the child was now large enough to eat. "The child seemed a little rounder when I saw her," said the beast. "There was more skin on her bones and more juiciness in her cheeks. You have done good work, Ebenezer." Ebenezer blushed. It was always a nice surprise to receive compliments from the beast. "And you know, I haven't had so much as bite to eat since the singing parrot," continued the beast. "My stomach has started to growl." "Oh, poor you," said Ebenezer. "You should have said, would you perhaps like a little snack?" "I would rather have a fat child, Ebenezer." "How much clearer can I be?" Ebenezer's chest tightened. He started to feel uneasy. "Be a dear to fetch the child," said the beast. "Bring up that fancy chutney as well. I want the dish to be oozing with flavor." No, blurted Ebenezer. Run out of the chutney, have you? How are we returning? Well, I guess a few bottles of brown sauce will do. No, I won't do it. Not with chutney and not with brown sauce. Ebenezer blinked, shocked at his own reply. He'd never said to the beast before. The beast gave Ebenezer a stern look. His three black eyes shone with fury. Please don't tell me you've been attached to that brat. I always have laughed quite enough for one day, said the beast. Ebenezer thought about what he was doing and wondered what had come over him. While he was trying to help Bethany, he pulled himself together. I hadn't finished speaking, said Ebenezer. When I said I won't do it, I meant I won't do it now as today. You see, it doesn't matter how much ground sauce or expensive chutney you put on Bethany because I don't think she's quite ready for you to eat. Give me another day to fatten her up. The fury expired from the beast's eyes. Thank goodness, you almost had me worried, said the beast. I thought it was going to be like the pet thing all over again. That called Lady Trouble or something like that? Anyway, I'm very glad that you're doing the right thing. Don't worry, there was never any chance that I was going to do the wrong thing, said Ebenezer. Good, good. Can I really not eat her today, though? I can feel another growl coming out. Trust me, it will be worth the wait, said Ebenezer. In the meantime, what did you decide about the potion, Advance? We decided that you should get your potion after you've eaten the child, and not a moment before, said the beast. Ebenezer hid his disappointment and walked to the door. Before he left the room, he said, by the way, that cat's name was not Lady Trouble. He was called Lord Tibbles. There was a lump in Ebenezer's throat as they walked downstairs. For the first time in a couple of centuries, he found himself thinking about Lord Tibbles. And he was rather upset as he remembered everything that had happened. The sudden concern for others was most unusual. Ebenezer could recognize that his own behavior had odd, particularly when it came to Bethany. He had been quite fond of Lord Tibble, so it had been understandable that he would feel upset from time to time. But with Bethany, it didn't make sense because he didn't think he liked her. Ebenezer should have just given Bethany to the beast. It would have saved him having to tell those lies about her not being ready to eat, but he would have got his hands on the potion so much faster. Now, however, he had to spend another whole day with her, and he had to struggle around the place with an aging body. Ebenezer wondered why he had acted in such a strange manner. He was never normally squeamish about feeding things to the beast. So why hadn't we thought Bethany upstairs? Ebenezer blamed his body. Older people tend to be more emotional about things, and this concern for others were probably a side effect of the wrinkles and the weak legs. He was sure that all this unusual feeling would disappear once he had the potion. When Ebenezer walked into the kitchen, he was greeted by the sound of Bethany snoring. She was lying on a face-down starfish position under a blanket of crumbled crow mix. Ebenezer laid out the bowl of porridge and jugs of orange juice and the best ketchup on basket of croissants and mini muffins. He banged a spoon on the saucepan to wake Bethany up. He took a seat at the breakfast table and discovered that Bethany had left something for him in the place. It was the comic with the cover of the orange-booted yellow-toothed bright green goblin. He had put a post-it note on it which read, "Fine, you can borrow it, but you don't have to give it back. I'll ruin all your favorite jumpers." Ebenezer was touched. He couldn't remember the last time anyone had let him borrow something. "Thank you," he said to Bethany as she sleepily took her seat at the table. "I'm ready about the jumpers," she said. "If you don't give me back within a week, then I'm going to feed them to the moth." Bethany picked the up a plate and filled it with 2 pans of ox raisins and a half a dozen mini muffins. Ebenezer noticed she had already gained quite a lot of weight. If the best saw her, he would eat her on the spot. Maybe you don't need to eat quite so much food today, said Ebenezer. You might live longer if you eat more healthily. Bug off, said Bethany. Then she shoved 2 muffins into her mouth. The bucket list. Ebenezer did not bug off. He refused to move from his seat, and he defied Bethany by scooping some porridge into his bowl. Meanwhile, Bethany made herself a squished muffin sandwich, a new dish that she had recently invented. She laid a blueberry muffin on top of a plain wax raisins, bashed it into little pieces with her fist, then put another plain wax raisins on the top. She picked up the whole thing up, careful not to let any crumbs get away, and then she scooped it all down in 3 greedy bites. It was quite a sight to see, and Ebenezer didn't know whether she would be impressed or appalled. As he looked at her, he realized that this was going to be the last day of her life. Tomorrow she would be nothing but a digested meal at the bottom of the beast's belly. "What are you looking at?" asked Bethany. "Sorry for staring," answered Ebenezer. "I can make you one if you like," she said, grabbing another 2 pancakes raisins. "Which flavor do you prefer, blueberry or chocolate?" "Oh no, I'm fine, thanks." Bethany's face full. She was disappointed. "Go on then, I'll try one," said Ben. "Blueberry, please." Bethany's face jumped up back into the place. She unwrapped the muffin, beat it into dust, then scattered the crumbs between 2 pans of ox raisins. There was a tinge of nervousness as she presented the finished product to Ebenezer. As soon as Ebenezer bit into it, he knew it was going to be nasty. There was a reason why muffins are usually used as sandwich fillings. "What do you think?" he asked Bethany hopefully. "It's delicious," he lied. Really wonderful." "Great." Bethany beamed with joy. "I'll make you another one." "Oh, no, please, no. I'm already stuffed." Bethany shrugged and returned to her own squashed mushroom sandwich. She dipped it in one of the bowls of porridge to improve the flavor, but then immediately regretted the decision. As Ebenezer looked at Bethany, he thought again about her impending death. He came to the conclusion that she was not an entirely horrible person. After all, there must be a smidgen of good in someone who is capable of sharing their worst comics and their unusual sandwich recipes. "This is to be the last day in Bethany's life," thought Ebenezer. "And I'm going to make sure that it's a good one." "Do you have a bucket list?" he asked her. "I don't have any list. If I did, I wouldn't write them into a flipping bucket." "No, that's what I meant. That's what you said. You should think about your words more carefully next time." Ebenezer went on to explain what a bucket list is. A list which should do nothing to do with the buckets and everything to do with the death. He explained that everyone has things which they want to do before they die, and these things, when thought about or written down, make up a person's personal bucket list. "That's stupid," said Bethany. "It should be called a death list instead." "It's called what it's called because the first person who made it was a big fan of buckets. His one goal in life to build the world's biggest bucket, one which would be able to hold an entire mountain of rocks." And did he? Nope. He didn't even come close. The one he made was nearly large enough to hold a pebble. But you see, that's the thing, the bucket list. People rarely got to do something if they want to do in life. Bethany wondered why Ebenezer was suddenly so interested in talking about death. She noticed that he looked a lot older than he had done the night before. "Are you about to die or something?" she asked. There was a hint of irritation in her voice, and she thought Ebenezer was being selfish for choosing to die. "Gosh, no," said Ebenezer. Then he thought about it. "Well, actually, I suppose I am. Right now, I'm currently on my way to dying of old age. But they'll all be fixed when the beast gives me the portion. And when it will that be? Tomorrow, I think. But anyway, enough about that. I want to know if there's anything on the bucket list. Bethany frowned with concentration. I suppose there may be one or two things, she said. Then there were more than one or two things on Bethany's list, and Ebenezer tried to make sure they got through as much as possible. A few things he wanted to do, such as riding the moon in a helicopter made of the jam, were not practical. However, there were plenty of things that they were able to tick off. The day began with a trip to Buckingham Palace. Bethany had heard the Queen's horse guys, those red chaps with the big silly hats, never left in public. And she wanted to see whether this was true. She made Ebenezer stop to buy a joke book on the way, and then they arrived outside the watering gate. She started to read it. The horse guide on the duty didn't crack so much as a smile. Even when he was first with the same of the hilarious ones, like, what do you call it, a magic dog? A labracadabrador. And what do you call an elephant that doesn't matter? An elephant. And even, why did the golfer wear 2 pairs of pants? In case he got a hole in one. The accomplice of giggles disappointing Bethany. She felt that she couldn't remove Buckingham Palace from her bucket list until she had made a horse guard laugh. Bethany knew this and decided to help. She started taking the horse guard with the handkerchief. Still, there was nothing. The horse guard was still trained and didn't make a sound, and Bethany became more aggressively playful with the handkerchief. The tickling business was brought to an end by the arrival of Perkins, the Queen's chef, on their boulevard. He informed Bethany and Betty, but the Queen was almost happy about their behavior, and that they were no longer welcome to talk to their horse guard. Idiot! Bethany shouted at Ebenezer as they walked away. I'm never able to make one left. Bethany was so angry, in fact, that she bashed Bethany's bottom with the joke book. Ebenezer was unwrapped for this and probably fell flat on his face. Ho, ho, ho! Bethany and Ebenezer looked behind them in surprise. Both of them could swear that the sound had come from the horse guard, but he gave no sign of outer laugh. His face was back to being stark. Horse and guard-like. Do you think that counts? Asked Ebenezer. Oh yes, that definitely came from him, said Bethany. Ebenezer and Bethany high-fived. They were about to leave, but decided to stay because they noticed that the Royal Marching Band were putting on a performance. The band marched from the doors to the palace, through the towering gate, out to the public arena. They were playing a trumpet song to mark the half birthday of the Queen's favorite corgi. Everything was going terribly well, and the band members were looking very pleased with themselves. But the performance came to end after Bethany appeared to attack a member of brass section. Perhaps Perkins returned and removed Bethany as the band member. He handed a note from the Queen, which read, Her Majesty firmly recalls that UK lingering outside her residence. Henceforth, she would not most be obliged if you would refrain from visiting all world locations. You what? Asked Bethany. It means we need to ball off, Bethany explained Ebenezer. Ebenezer and Bethany returned to the car and quickly zoomed away from the palace. Ebenezer took the opportunity to ask Bethany to explain what in the name of fudge cake she had been thinking. I was trying to get his trumpet, said Bethany. His trumpet? Yeah, so I can shove it down to the beast's throat. No one vomits smoke at me and gets away with it. Please don't, Ebenezer. I remind you once more that I'm able to stay alive because of the beast. Bethany made no promise to follow Ebenezer's instructions. During the ride back, they were able to tick off another 2 items from Bethany's bucket list. They pretended to be a Russian while ordering from a drive-thru restaurant. and they composed a song while nothing but the car horn. Ebenezer had prepared himself to have a thoroughly miserable day. He imagined that the task of going through Bethany's bucket list would be a horrible, boring one filled with childish and uninteresting activities. But as though he was surprised that he realized he was having a wonderful time. He decided that if he ever had to feed another child to the beast, then it would be definitely let the child have a bucket list day. So what next? said Ebenezer, excited for the next activity. I think you know, said Bethany with a grin. Ebenezer paused to think about the delightfully wicked activity might up Bethany's sleeve. Are we going to make some prank calls? He suggested. No, that's a brilliant idea. Let's add it to the list. What I wanted to do next is get a pet. Bethany, there's no point getting a pet. You'll only be able to look after it for a day. Why only a day? Bethany was puzzled. What's happening tomorrow? Ebenezer thought quickly, wondering how he would be able to backtrack. It would really spoil the day if she found out she was going to be eaten alive tomorrow. I mean, you won't be able to keep a pet in the house without the beast eating it, said Ebenezer. Remember Lord Tibbles. I won't let it eat my pet, declared Bethany. The beast will order me to bring the pet, and I won't have a choice in this matter. That's a total rubbish, says Bethany. You don't have to do everything the beast says. I'm afraid I do. If not, I will die of old age. The beast has complete control over me. Maybe it's better for you to die than live and get bossed around that thing, she snapped. And after about 5 seconds, she added, sorry, I didn't mean that. The moon had soured. All the jolliness in the day was slowly disappearing out of the car. Don't worry about it, Ebenezer. I know it's hard to understand, but the beast and I, well, we need each other. Now, aside from the whole pet thing, is there anything else left on the list we can do? I really, really want a pet. Or at least have a look at some animals. Can we go to a zoo or something? Unfortunately not, because I recently received a lifetime ban from the head zookeeper, said Ebenezer. But I do have another idea.